Hey folks, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Lounge Chair Chronicles. I am Frank, your pest geek, but I guess you already knew that. You're probably wondering what the heck happened to me. Um, what's been going on? Why, haven't I produced anything in the last 2 months? Actually, I've been taking a break. Um, from doing anything because I had to refocus on the business. We're in the middle of summer, and like something always happens that is drastic in the business um, that you will experience. That I lost a technician, and in this economy, trying to hire, I had to refocus my attention on. I hired a salesperson at the same time, and that situation didn't turn out the way I thought it would. My technician, I had to, make a decision um, on that, and I did. A decision that I should have made a while back, but I didn't. Again, and because these are emotional issues, it's very easy to say they fire themselves. They do, but you still have to go through that process emotionally, mentally, and then how are you going to manage it? Because I'm not in the field. I'm in the field once, twice a week, doing 3, 4 stops just to deal with problems that they can't solve. I'm in the field. I'm here all the time at home, doing marketing, doing sales, and recovering from burnout and chronic fatigue. People are like, I made a post the other day that I'm throwing my hat in the field for consulting and training and doing that. I've always done the training part through the podcast, but I'm going to be doing. We finally decided, me and Eric, uh, that after 2 years plus or more of conversations, almost 3 years now of conversations, Eric always wanted to open up his own agency. He's risk averse. He doesn't have the entrepreneurial skills that it takes, but he's a wonderful geek, a tech geek. He's a wonderful person. He's an extremely hard worker. Um, he's he's the other side of me that can execute on a lot of things that I can't. Um, so we decided. I made the post. We decided, hey, after a long conversation, he's going to come full time to work for me. Um, Starting next month, sometime in September, um, after his basic, another career is ending, something he's done for 30 years. Um, and we're going to get into this because it does matter. Context matters, that people understand. I hear in the groups, I hear people making the comments that, um, that it's great to have other people build your podcast for you. I said, no, you don't understand, bro. For 7 years, I did the podcast exclusively by myself. And Stephen Van Tassel is not building my podcast, not building my platform. As a matter of fact, he came on and he asked me to come on my platform because he realized he wasn't going to be able to build that himself. And I already had the infrastructure and I already had the audience. And he wanted to get into the consulting business of doing wildlife consulting. And he approached me several years ago, and when I interviewed him on the podcast, we had conversations about how nobody ever gave him an opportunity to do anything. And I said, anytime you want to come on and do something, you're welcome. And he decided that, that was it. And he's been on with me that whole time while he's building up his platform, building up his reputation, and all that. So people say a lot of stupid things without context that irritate me, but a bit. But hey, it is what it is. When you're out there, and that's par for the course. But to give you some context about what's happened, because I decided to do that, and of course, the question is, well, you got burned out, so now you're going to do consulting. No, I understand something. I admitted I was burned out 2 years ago when you go to my January, what was it, June of 22, that I decided to do a podcast on recovering from burnout. I already had been in burnout for 2 years before that. I've been under medical care, physical therapy, doing recovery, and in the last 9 months, it's cost about $20,000 alone in lab work and diagnostics to figure out what is wrong with me. The conclusion is I have chronic fatigue syndrome. That's it. Now, I'm recovered about 90% because I did everything myself. I had to do my own physical therapy for 2 years. For people who don't know, back in 2020, when I was going through a separation, I had 2 hospitalizations. Thought I was having a heart attack twice. Turns out there was nothing. It's just the chronic stress of dealing with the separation. In May of 21, my mother, early that year, she's having problems. She's not telling me. Finally, we take her to the doctor. Turns out she has a mass in her chest that had metastasized, and that was in her liver and her kidneys and all over. And she barely had any little time to live. In May of 21, she passes away. In July of 22, my divorce is final. I have to bury my mother, grieve through that whole process. In the middle, I'm going through the separation. COVID is hitting. I'm pretty much laid out in bed for weeks and months at a time. Physically, I cannot move. Before that, I was paralyzed on the right side of my body. I had plantar fasciitis, drop foot, sciatica in here. So everything from here all the way down to my feet, I couldn't walk. I barely dragged my feet. When I show up to the Paul Bello conference in late 21 or early 22, I had gone through so much physical therapy to basically restore this side of my body that I would do physical therapy every day. And in order for me just to be able to function, the knee, I remember posting about my knee on this side was starting to get affected, and I couldn't walk, I couldn't work, I couldn't do. Luckily, I don't have to be in the field. Luckily, I had enough foresight years ago to hire people, create systems, automate everything through software, where just about everything I do is automated through software. I spend in the neighborhood of about $6,000-7,000 a year on software alone, because it does the work of multiple people that I would have to hire when I have to wear 5 hats. But I come from a software background, I come from a corporate background, I come from a sales background, I come from a management background. I know how to manage businesses. I'm not an entrepreneur. I never claimed to be an entrepreneur. I never claimed to be a guru. I am by nature a trainer, a manager, a salesperson. I had to learn how to become a marketer, and I had to learn how to build systems, which I already knew, but I had to do it for myself. So we're going to be going through basically a synopsis of the last 5 years and where we are now and where we're going in the future, because I've talked about a lot of things that I want to do in the future. And no, I'm not burned out. Actually, I recovered about 95% from the burnout. The chronic fatigue syndrome, I basically had to learn how to treat it myself by doing a crap load of studies and NIH studies and listening to people who had been through it and learning how to biohack my system, because it was an ATP problem in my mitochondria, due to the fact that the Bible says that a merry heart does good like medicine, but sorrow dries up the bones. And what people don't know, that in January of 21, Eric starts to work with me. Eric goes from a career of 18 years working for a church, which I used to be a member of, where I used to be the youth pastor, and where we used to do television and radio production together because I was on that team too. Pastor sells everyone under the river, throws everybody under, decides to move away out of town, sell his property, close the church down, and leave everybody hang dry to sell the church and make money off the property. That's the kind of stuff he went through after 18 years of devoting himself, working 60, 70-hour weeks, neglecting his family, neglecting his health, neglecting himself, to go in and now have to figure out what he's going to do. And he starts working for me part-time while he's doing his other job that he also did to make ends meet, because the church would never pay him enough to after he worked 60 hours a week in the church, he would work about 20 hours a week as a linguistics teacher, which he's done since he was 18. I mean, this guy has been a teacher and a trainer and a techie his entire life. We have similar backgrounds. That's just why we get along so well, and why I see the potential in him, and I see in him what he doesn't see in himself sometimes, that he's had to learn through dealing with me for 2 years. Imagine that you have to sit here and deal with me for 2 years, when most people sit down with me to have a conversation and after 20 minutes they're exhausted. Having to overcome a lot of that, to where most people don't know that he lost. There's a podcast that we did. We started the Godly Business Podcast in 21, right after the separation, my mother's death, and the divorce. I needed therapy. And the best way I know how to do therapy is to actually go into the scriptures and then apply it to myself, but then try to help other people. Why I do a podcast after 10 years now, that I started the podcast 6 months after I started Nature Pest, because people don't know that Nature Pest and my company, my pest control business, started in 2014 legally, and 2013, from 2006 to 2007, I owned the property service company. I owned a landscape business that owned a landscape business, was doing also pest control. We had a pool business, plus we had a home repair business. And after putting on so many things and doing so many things, working with crews, and sometimes having 3-4 crews working at the same time, and dealing with all these misfits, at 2013, I had enough. I was tired. I was done. And I got home and I said to my girlfriend, at the time later became my wife, I said, I'm done. I'm shutting it all down, and I'm going to focus on the pest control business, and we're going to open up an eco-friendly pest control business. I'm going to open up an eco-friendly pest control business because I'm going to do it. And you know what the funny part is? Everybody had told me in 2007 that would never work. But the problem is I've been planning it and strategizing and preparing for it since 2007. It only took 7 years to 2014 for me to have developed the systems, developed the business model, develop it, and the only thing that was really profitable was that pest control division. I shut everything down, sold off all the equipment, lived off of the sale of it until I could build a pest control business. Everybody says you're crazy to go into an eco-friendly natural pest control. There's no market for that. Nobody cares. The problem is I've been doing research since 2007. You see, when I make decisions, it isn't something that I just decided I'm going to get up one day and do. It's things that I've been talking about doing, planning, strategizing for, sometimes for years, almost a decade sometimes. And I was planning to do it through franchising, and I would have on my table a stack about that thick of contracts, because I was trying to understand the legality of the franchising. And most people don't understand that, I used to negotiate contracts this thick when I was in corporate. And, when I was a regional manager and I was a regional salesperson managing 28 states and about $13 million in business a year, this is what I did. I negotiated contracts. So I bring a lot of, building stores and managing stores and managing businesses. I've managed $2 million businesses before. That's nothing new for me. When I walk into a $2 million operation, I understand what is happening there. I've managed 20 people in the past at a very young age. So what am I telling you all this? Because experience matters, expertise matters. No, I'm not burnout. I actually recovered from burnout. It took me 4 years. It took me 4 years of physical therapy to repair my body, the knee. Turns out all of these problems were muscular problems because of the amount of sorrow and at the same time stress I was under. And I burned out and I recovered. And I'm about 95% recovered, except I have no desire of being in the field. I have no desire of running back. This is why I hired people. This is why I continue to hire people. This is why we built our own in-house agency for the last 3 years, building it, getting the subcontractors and people to do stuff for us, buying the software, learning how to do. I've learned how to do SEO. People said, you can't build a business on SEO alone. I said baloney because I did it from the ground up, but that was my business model. It was social media, YouTube, and SEO. That's where I get all of my business from. To this day, now we're doing ads. Now we're starting to run ads, and we're still growing. People have asked me to do training for them. I've had companies in California that have 10, 12 people to go over there and do training. I said, I can't. I just can't get away, to go away to California, travel, and do that. And I've had people here locally. We're doing corporate training. We've been doing corporate training for a while, quietly. I do consulting and training for the entire Miami-Dade County team. I've done it. Training on new products and training on when they transition from glyphosate to a new brand. I helped with that. I've always been a teacher and a trainer. This is what I'm known for. It was funny because I'll tell you a true story. Eric's been telling me that I should, everything I do, that I teach him, he says, bro, you should turn this into a course. Bro, you should turn this into a course. I mean, literally, he's a parrot. Bro, you should turn this into a course. Because the stuff that I know to do, nobody's teaching, nobody's doing. And especially in the pest control. The problem is I don't want to build an SEO agency. Doing SEO is a stressful, non-gratitude business that I don't want to get into. I'm not going to. We are going to get into SEO consulting. And we're going to be third party. I've talked about this a while back, doing third party auditing for companies, showing them where their SEO company is hiding the stuff, where they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, what they're doing right, what are they doing wrong, and consult them on this and be able to do that kind of work. We also are going to do, because I have an itch that I need to scratch. My greatest pleasure in the world that I get is doing this, but also talking to the owners. When I get the phone call several times a week from people, man, I listened to your podcast on this, I'm struggling with that, how do you do it? And I've been giving away all the advice for free. I'm at a point where I decided, everybody calls me, all my friends call me, all the people that listen. I've made a lot of friends throughout the years. When are you going to monetize the podcast? When are you going to monetize the podcast? I don't feel like monetizing. I had one sponsor, and we ended that very quickly. And then people were like, well, I bought the software because you recommended it. I mean, I still am a member of that software. They went through a terrible time with the sale of the business, and now they're getting back to there. And I just don't want to sell products. I don't want to pump other people's products. So that's why I've never monetized the podcast. I was at the Paul Bello conference over 2 years ago. It's going to be 3 years now. At that time, I wanted to go there because I was already in a strategy mode to grow my company, grow my business. And then all of this happened. The divorce came, my mother died, COVID came. It was during COVID that I had already just passed through all that, a part of it. And we did it right after COVID. It was 2019, 2020, 2021, I believe. It was in September, I believe they did it in 21. And I got to meet a bunch of ones. I did a bunch of podcasts on that where we were at. Um, at that time, I had to do physical therapy every morning on myself. I literally have to roll out and be able to stretch and do yoga, and I had to do it on a daily basis just to be able to function that day. And I met with Sky Lejeune, who owns the Lejeunes. Her and her husband own Lejeune Pest Control in Louisiana. Very successful. 20 employee business. They're branching out into mosquito control now and for the city, and I mean they're true entrepreneurs. And she met me, and she said to me, Frank, I listen to all of your podcasts. I make sure all of my people listen to your podcast on your training stuff. And then she looked at me and says, but you're never going to grow a big business. And it wasn't like I was insulted or I was offended. He says, you need to devote yourself to teaching and training. That's where your strong thing is. You're not an entrepreneur. I said, I know that. And I know what you're telling me is true. And this is a person who's a Christian woman, God-fearing, and that was prophetic for me. But this was over 2 years ago, and I'm still dealing with all of these problems personally that she knew nothing about. And I said, yes, you're absolutely right. My business is really more of an incubator to test ideas than it is more to grow it. And I always thought I was going to do the franchising thing, but the reason that doesn't work out in Florida. And I want you to understand, and I want you to listen, because a lot of the things you plan for, a lot of things you want to do, a lot of the things are not going to come to fruition because you've got so many options and so many ideas. And I had, so I'm the kind of guy that I put the ideas out there, I float them, I see what happens, and then I see where the opportunities are and where I can do the best damage in a good way. But the problem that we found out in Florida is that you need a CPO. You can't just apply for a license. The guys that are wanting to open franchises really want it for the license because they want us to provide the license so that they can be with us for 3 years, cancel, and then go use us to start their business. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I was clear. It's a 10-year contract that you're going to sign. And if you try to quit and do that, I'm going to sue you for revenues. So that quickly ends that idea of that conversation. I'm just a straight shooter that way so that nobody misunderstands. Nobody misunderstands me and understands that I'm not an idiot. So, I read so many of those contracts. Literally, it was like this on my coffee table. And I spent 9 months reading and digesting all those contracts. So the franchising requires that you have at least a good operation with at least 2 units showing proof of concept to make it successful. So is that out there? So yeah, I have all the documents. We have franchise documents. We have everything done. It's available. What I've learned over the last 5 years and 10 years of doing this podcast and having endless conversations with people who are entrepreneurs who've actually built multi-million-dollar businesses, a lot of it is DNA. What I've been able to find a pattern of those that can build a successful business, it's usually about 5 things. And so listen up, because in every single case, I've been able to prove this. They come from a background of where they worked for large national brands, or at least big regional brands that almost covered like the whole state. And they were either operations managers or branch managers or sales managers or VPs. They were some high level where they learned the entire business, and they were there working at those companies for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 15 years. And then they left to start up, but they had everything they needed because they had learned everything operationally. They understood what needed to be done in sales. They understood what needed to be done in marketing at a high level. They were branch managers who actually ran large branches. They were salespeople or sales managers or sales VPs at companies that did door to door. So they understood how to build door to door. In other words, they could go out and build a sales team that could instantly pump the business with 600-700 contracts that year, while it would take the average solopreneur, solo tech that never sold, never managed, never hired, never did marketing, never did any of this, 10, 15 years to do. And this is how they're able to scale their business and grow. These are the secrets. So what in my counseling and my consulting with a lot of solo operators who don't have the skill to sell, they tell me, yeah, I did selling because I had to upsell and I had to replace the clients that I lost and I clover-leafed and I did that, but I never was trained as a salesperson. I've never done marketing. I don't know what marketing is. They think marketing is passing out business cards. They've never hired and fired anybody in their life. They don't understand even accounting, basic accounting. They don't know where the percentages are. They don't know how to read a P&L. They don't know anything about business at all. And what they did was they got fed up one day. I'm going to start up because I'm a good technician. And they went from technician to business owner. That doesn't make you an entrepreneur. It doesn't make me an entrepreneur. Yet I've acquired all of these skills. And I'm still not an entrepreneur because I am a visionary. I'm an ideas guy. I'm a implementer. But I can't execute on all of them. And I need to find executioners that can execute on all those skills. Proven by my sixth genius. So I have to surround myself with executioners. In other words, I'm more fit to be almost a president, but a terrible, probably CEO. And those are the things that I found. If you're taking notes and you're paying attention, you will find yourself that, yeah. So you don't, in my consulting, you're not a business owner. You're self-employed. You're a freelancer. 20 years ago, being a freelancer meant you were unemployed. Today, it's lucrative. Those are the things. You got to wear all those hats, and then on top of that, you own all that responsibility. You own it all. You own all the mistakes. You own everything. Everything is your fault. Everything is your glory. And you went from technician to owner without not understanding any of this. And now you have to acquire those skills. And acquiring those skills is equated to what I've gone through in the last 4 years of physical therapy. In consulting and in my consulting work, in my counseling work that I had to do, a lot of the time is what my physical therapist had to do. I didn't realize that I had the first rib out of place. What was causing my pinched neck? I went to a chiropractor. They were cracking my neck all the time. My massage therapist for the last 4 years didn't understand why he would have to work on my back every 2 weeks so hard for 50 minutes and still not get all the lumps, and then 3, 4, 5 days later, a week later, the lumps are back. It finally took me going from seeing specialists, from seeing doctors, to saying, it's your stress, it's your stress, it's your stress, it's your stress. I mean, I got so tired of hearing doctor tells me in my stress, you need to see a therapist, you need to see a psychiatrist. We're going to put you on psychiatric medication. I look at the doc, I don't mean psychiatric medication. Yes, I am crazy. That's proven by what I do, what I've done in the last 10 years on this podcast. You have to be crazy to do what you do. People are like, I don't know how you do all of the things you do. I don't know how you're doing all of this. Half of it was being done when I was sitting in a bed where if I worked one day in the field, I would collapse for the next 4 days and spend it in bed, and I couldn't get up. This is what people don't know. People make all kinds of value judgments, and they don't know what's going on in your life, nor did I tell you. But I'm telling you now. You know, we look at the podcast, Eric's mouth was paralyzed. His whole side of his face from the stress got paralyzed. Just recently, his eye was paralyzed when he got the bad news that, hey, his career's over. I said, bro, you understand that you and I have been talking about doing things, and I've hired you part-time so that you can do the teaching thing and you're not financially stressed. And it's still financially stressful. I said, this is the best thing that could happen to you. You finally get, but understand, he's risk averse. He has to jump into a pool of water. Which takes me to the next point. Do you realize I was a certified pool operator? And in the course of a certified pool operator, he says, you know, the guy says, you know, the reality is that most people that drown in about 4 feet of water. The majority of drownings has to do with kids. But what people do when they fall into a pool and they don't know how to swim is they start going crazy paddling, and what they're doing is exhausting themselves to the point where they're going to drown because they cannot sustain that for very long. You can't sustain wild paddling for very long. You will get tired and you will drown. He says the number one thing they need to do is stop paddling and just stand up. If you just stand up, most of the time you're in 4 feet of water. You will not drown. Number two is if you stop paddling and you learn to float. You don't have to learn to swim, you just have to learn to float. You won't drown. What are business people doing who find themselves now, you know, in the conversations, everybody's asking, how do you start a corporation and an LLC and all this? I need to hire an attorney. And they think that's the hardest part about starting a business, is the easiest part. It's actually operating a business and getting to profitability that is the hard part. They jump into that shallow end of the pool, and that's the hardest part. Then they find themselves in all this stress and distress, working 60-hour weeks to make less money than when they were working. And wondering after 2 years later, 3 years later, you guys that are in the solo groups, talking all this stuff you're talking up. And then when I have the conversation with you, because I point out that you're working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks, to need a part-time job, to not making it, because you think and you keep harping on the fact that you're a better technician than 90% of the big brands that are out there, but you're starving, is not good. You know, I get to make more money today than most people who are in corporate America managing multi-million-dollar businesses. I was one of them. I know. So this idea that you're paddling and you're struggling and you're doing all this, but you can't stop. You can't stop because you think you're drowning, and all you're doing is like moving in quicksand does not help you get out of it. It is learning to stop for a minute, learn to rest and relax for a bit and say, okay, I need some time to think. Maybe if I just paddle myself like this to the edge of the pool, I will be okay. The first thing they taught my son when he was taking swimming, I'm an observer. I am from the school of Winslow Taylor of scientific management. All I do is observe systems. And I observe how they were training my son when he was 2 years old to jump in a pool, drop him in a pool, teach him to turn around and grab the wall. That was the entire training they did for about 6 months, is to teach him how to fall and get the fear out of him of falling into a pool. Yet we don't apply any of this to our business. This is not wisdom that I just decided to wake up one morning and read Socrates. This is observational biology. What we do in our business is observational biology. How does the pest behave? How do we head it off? You got to get your financial systems in place. You realize you can automate your QuickBooks. You don't need an accountant. You don't need a bookkeeper. You automate your QuickBooks. You can automate it now with Pest routes, where it pumps in the data automatically. And if you have a payroll company, I don't have a payroll company. Why don't you? Because with Gusto, no plugs here. I don't get paid by these companies. With Gusto, you can literally do your payroll, pay yourself, not be in a tax situation that you're going to hurt yourself. Start paying yourself. Start learning how to do payroll. Automate it. Get it imported into QuickBooks, and 90% of your books are done because you automatically connect your bank account, connect your credit card, connect your debit card. You get it set up, and you automate your bookkeeping where it takes less than 10 minutes a month. My bookkeeping for my company is 10 minutes a month. And the best compliment I ever get for the last 30 years that he's been my accountant, my CPA, is the fact that I wish everybody was like this, because I show up with W-2s and a P&L. It's done. I spend less time with him doing my taxes. Most of the time I'm doing financial planning with him on how next year, because I am making more money, because every year I make more money, because every year I do better, how do I plan for the taxes? How do I plan for this? How do I plan for that? People don't know how to do this, and nobody's consulting them on this. And the people in the groups that are giving the advice have never actually done it. Why do I want to do the consulting? The last thing I said, and you've heard me on this podcast 100 times, is why am I going to do consulting? Because I only care about the 1% of you that is struggling, that will sit down with me, allow me to be a therapist, a physical therapist, find the pain point and say, let's work on that. And that you're actually going to implement and execute on it, and not give me, yeah, but. Some of you have butt disease. Yeah, but for everything. You won't do anything. So what am I going to do? What do I do with people? I normally have 1 to 2 sessions, 1 or 2 consulting sessions. And I said, here's 3 things that you need to do right now. Okay, there is no sense in sitting here talking about a 5-year plan on marketing and how I'm going to teach you how to scale your business and talk all this great corporate BS stuff when you have no clue where your money's going, where you have no clue what a P&L even looks like. In order for you to execute and be a CEO and be an entrepreneur, you first have to be a good business manager. Why your routes are all over the place and you're spending 10 hours in the field every day for 8 clients is beyond me. Why you're making $400 a day spending 10 hours in the field is beyond me. But I have to do this. No, you don't. How I close $13 million a year in business over the phone and used to close, $500,000 a year contracts, most of the time was over the phone, and I would have to travel somewhere sometimes. At a conference, I would meet with you, have a beer, and close that deal. Because it can be done. You don't have to go out and give every estimate, drive all over God's creation, spending 45 minutes back and forth, wasting an hour and a half when your hour is worth $150 an hour, and you're wasting all this time. But the problem is, it's never the work that I have to do with most people. It's not about their pest control knowledge. It has to do with fear. There's 2 of the most powerful motivators in the world, is fear and love. The Bible says that perfect love casts out fear. Do you love enough what you're going to do for your business that you can get rid of the fear of doing it and practicing it and taking the advice and actually doing what I tell you to do? Or are you going to tell me all the ways you can't do it because you've already defeated yourself? There is no talking to you. There is no convincing you. If you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you can't. Either way, you are right. And nobody's going to talk you out of it. Fear of rejection, fear of what customers are going to think, fear of what your family is going to think, fear of what your colleagues are going to think, fear of what everybody thinks. And you're out there pigeonholing yourself, going out for a customer that calls right now, and you're going to drive an hour and a half instead of telling that customer, I'm going to be in that territory in the next 2 days. We're going to book it for Tuesday, and I'm going to get it done for you on Tuesday. And look a customer straight in the eye with that confidence. No, because I read, so-and-so's book that said the reason he grew his company, is because he offered same-day service. I said, what you forget about Donnie is that by the time he made that decision, he probably already had 10 technicians. And the biggest, and the thing was, he had to convince, the biggest strategy was that he had to convince all his technicians and his CSRs and his business managers and his service managers that could be done. And what you want to do is you want to get it done from the get-go. And you read all these books and you listen to all these podcasts, not forgetting that these people don't tell you is by the time they made some of those decisions, they were already an established business doing millions of dollars a year, and they had the infrastructure to make a lot of these decisions. And what you want to do is you want to be just like them when you can't even read a P&L. You got this like, how do I scale my business? I said, do you realize that a pest control business, to scale it, requires that you get already to a couple of $1 million where you have enough synergy and enough money to be able to throw 10% of your budget, $200, $300, $400, $1 million a year at marketing. And you want to go from being a technician to being a scaling business when you operationally are a disaster. We got to stop with all the corporate BS stuff we're throwing around in all these groups. People who don't know how to wipe their butt as a business, have never actually done any of this, but they have all the answer, and all these people are just listening to them and go, yeah, and then they feel like, how do I do it? Because it's very simple. I can give you an SEO plan that is foolproof. And unless I can give it to you, I'll give it to you for free. Of everything that we do. And now you have to go line item by line item and learn what the heck that term means. And then you have to study it, understand everything about it on that one point. And then you have to go implement it and figure out how to implement it and then how to execute it. And you will find that even if I gave you a plan, it'll still take you 10 years to figure it out. I don't intend to make you an SEO expert. I tend to make you SEO knowledgeable so that you can have the intelligent conversation, that I can coach you when you hire an SEO agency, what to really expect, what you're going to really pay for what you want, and then that you can actually hold them accountable because you don't know how to hold them accountable. That's what we're going to be doing as consultants. Look, if you look at the podcast that I did with, oh my God, my train of thought just got derailed. That I did, it was about 9 months ago, with Pete LaQuaglia. He is an SEO guy. He has an SEO agency. He only takes on select clients. He's been on with me a couple times. I asked him to do an audit of my website, an audit of my SEO, and how do we improve it. And he basically told me what was wrong. He didn't tell me how to fix it. He told me he could fix it for me. He didn't tell me how to fix it, he just told me what was wrong. Me, being the guy that I am, I chase everything down a rabbit hole. Figured out how to do it, And he said, it's easier to rebuild your site, start from over. And I said, yeah, but I've been down that road before. I know the pitfall. I know the danger. Change all the SEO words and change everything. I said, I already knew that we had about 200 man hours of work to do based on another audit I had done before. And this is why everybody wants to redo my website. I said, I don't need to redo my website to change these numbers that you're telling me. I know enough about SEO. What did I do? I went in and I fixed the problem. Still didn't have to do a new website. We're going to do a new website. I just hired another guy to do the website. 3 months later, he still hasn't been able to finish. Now he's lost in the wind. I can't find him. After I paid him half. This is the kind of stuff we go through. This is reality. I'm not going to see, I have perfect SEO guys. My guys come through all the time, 100%. I have people I work for, that work for me that are just amazing. No, people do shit. So what do? I hire people in Pakistan. I hire people to do parts, but I never give them the whole enchilada. In other words, I am about vertical integration. We're going to handle everything in-house. We're not trusting anybody anymore to do it because I hired an SEO agency. I hired 2 of them in the last year and a half. Both of them tanked my SEO again. I took it back. I gave it to another guy just to manage the GMB. Couldn't make it happen. My GMB has improved. I took everything that Pete told me to do that needed to get fixed, and I fixed it. Right now, we're at where he told me I needed to be. It took me 3 months. 10 hours a week. That's the reality, what it took to fix it. But we fixed it. Because I know how to fix those things. It's the time. So what do I do all day long? I'm here answering calls. I'm here doing admin work. I'm here doing scheduling. I am right now my office manager. Why don't you hire an office manager? I hired a person to do sales. Since I took over sales, I doubled it. I'm better at it than anybody else. I'm going to hire Eric now, and he's going to be full-time. He's going to take over all the SEO. He's going to take over all the social media. He's going to take over all the production. And I'm taking that hat off, and all I am now is a manager. I know what to look for and say, Eric, okay, here's what we're missing. Here's what we're not doing, but I still have to be a manager. You can't delegate 100% and take your hands off of it and not manage it and not know where the KPIs are and say, these are the KPIs that I need. It's no longer about creative. Now it's about competition. And this is where he's afraid. Because I am competitive, but I'm competitive in these arenas. So I'm hiring him full time. We're going to be doing, he is a teacher and a trainer by trade, by profession. I'm by calling. He's a tech guru. I'm technological. He executes better than I do because he's a workhorse. He's also about vision and he's also about ideas and creativity because he's a musician. Understand that he's creative because he does artwork and he does all this. He's gonna do my website. We're gonna do it in-house. Say screw it. He can do it. He's a web designer. The reason I haven't had him do it is because he had no time, nor the energy. He was burned out. I said, I need you to recover, dude. I'm gonna pay you for the next 2 months to do nothing. I'm going to pay you to do nothing. I want it because the thing we don't do in America today is stop paddling, rest for a minute, get ourselves to the shore, get ourselves to safety, and then recover from that trauma. It's go, go, go. You need grit and you need this and you need that. So some of you I see, you're so overweight, you're burned out, you don't take care of your health, you don't eat right, you're eating junk food, and then you're landing yourselves in a hospital. Luckily for me, since 2000, I changed my eating habits. I was able to weather this and do as good as I can because my arteries aren't clogged. I don't have a problem with my liver, I don't have a problem with my kidneys, I don't have a problem with my heart, I don't have a problem with my arteries, I don't have a problem in my brain other than what most people will say I'm totally crazy, which I would agree. They can't find anything physical. My blood work is perfect. All my vitamins, minerals, everything in my body is functioning other than my ATP. I was able to biohack that and fix it. But I took the time for me to heal, but I already had systems in place that allowed me to take that time for me to heal. If you don't have the time to heal when you have an injury, you're never going to be functional. And you can't help your family, you can't help your friends, you can't help your church, you can't do anything right. I needed him to take the time off. This is why I haven't produced a podcast for 2 months. All this time, I'm paying him. And I said, take it off. If anything, just produce Van Tassel stuff so his stuff still gets out. And he couldn't even do that. I said, Bill, don't worry about it. I'll deal with it. But I wasn't going to take that back. Once I delegated, I don't start taking things back. The moment I take them back, this is where the challenge is for a lot of you. You hire technicians, they don't work out, you fire everybody, you go back into the field, and you're back to where you started. No, I'm going to find, you know what? We just won't do this for a while. Is it going to hurt us? No. We can pick back up where we were. I can get the audience back. I can do things. People will be happy for us. People will understand. I have a tribe of followers that are diehard followers that are going to follow me into the pit of hell. And those are the people that I want to help. So when you've been through the fire, when you've been through hell, when you've been through burnout, when you've been through and you have a successful business, and you've been through all this, you can help people. I always ask God, why am, Eric's like, man, we take one step forward and it feels like we take 10 back. And I said, understand that you and I being here today is no coincidence. We talked about doing something 20 years ago. We were going to start we were doing television and radio. We were going to start like a videography business because we both were camera people. We both understood the technology. We understood video production. Let's just start. And we couldn't because the church wouldn't allow anything. It was like total control over people. And we couldn't, he was working 60-hour weeks. I was working 60-hour weeks and getting paid for 40. I saw the writing on the wall, and I didn't do it anymore. But he's that loyal of a person that went down with a sinking ship, knowing the Titanic was going down. He was like the band that played on. So that matters. Loyalty matters. Character matters. Integrity matters. I look more at those things than I look at his ability to be a business owner. He doesn't need to be a business owner. That's what I do. He doesn't need to be entrepreneurial. That's what I do. So he's coming on. We're building up an agency as a partnership. We're going to be finishing the Pest Academy. He hasn't been able to finish it. And I'm not going to do it. I do the content. It's his job to do that, and we just wait. And it's okay to wait. And it's okay not to have to do things. And it's okay what everybody else is going to think. And it's okay to me. It doesn't matter. So the Academy's we're going to be doing courses on SEO. How to do SEO courses. But from the purpose of, if you want to do it yourself, you can. And if at least you'll have the knowledge to take the course, to know what you're going to do if you're going to hire an agency. I'm going to be doing one-on-one consulting with people. I have been. I've been doing it for years now. It was practice. I gave it away for free because if my advice wasn't worth anything to you, at least you didn't feel you got robbed. My fee is going to be this, $100 an hour. We meet for 1 hour. I find out what your problems are. You tell me what they are. I analyze them. I come back next week. We have another hour. We look at where the pain points are, and we say we're going to fix these 3 things. And you're not going to call me back. I'm not going to string you along with a subscription model that you're paying me $600 a month, like a lot of the big name consultants are, and string you along. If you're not executing, at least you know that it's on you, and you're not going to waste your money, and you're not going to waste my time, because I'm going to walk away with a $100 bill. You're going to be left with what you have to do, and if you do it great, and if you don't do it great, that's on you. Because that's the reality of SMB consulting, is that you tell owners what they need to do, and they'll butt you on everything and still not do it understanding that that's what they need to do because it's so painful, and they don't want to rip that Band-Aid, and they don't want to do it. What they don't want to do the painful work. What they want to do is keep living under a delusion. They want to keep. If you just tell me the next, motivational speech, I will be motivated for the next week. That's the problem with motivational speeches. Motivation is it's like bathing. You got to do it every day because every day you get dirty. Motivation doesn't last. What lasts is sound management principles that you can take to the bank. That's what lasts. That's what we're focusing on. Is you'll blow about $200 with me. You will find out that what you want to do, this is what it's really going to take. We will do it in steps. When you get that done, you call me back. You give me a report on what you did, and you don't call me back until you get it done, because I'm not going to take your call. I'm not going to take your money. It's very simple. We're going to be doing SEO consulting on a monthly basis. That will be a subscription model for us to monitor your SEO, but we're only doing the monitoring. We're going to show you what the strategy needs to be, the hard conversations you need to have with your SEO company about the real 25 keywords they need to rank you for. What's that going to take? I've done that before. I've done that. I had a friend here recently. I actually met with him and his SEO company, and I asked him all the hard questions. And basically I said, you see, this is the reality. Now I pinned his SEO guy to the wall to tell him the truth about how long this therapy is actually going to take and how painful it's going to be to get it done, and that don't expect any results in the next year. And he had to be honest with him. And we had to ask all the hard questions. But I know how to do that. I can hook you up and say, this is how you set up your chart of accounts. This is how you set up your QuickBooks. This is how you set up the software. Let's analyze your routes. Let's analyze what you're paying yourself. Let's analyze your costs and figure out how we get all these costs under control and where we get your pricing where it needs to be, and let's push it on the pricing. Here's a small sales strategy. Here is a small marketing strategy you can do for 15 minutes a day that will work. I was a strategic salesperson. I know that. Here's the plan. I'm going to give you these little plans to implement. And if I come back to you in 30 days, 90 days, and I said, how much work did you put into these 15 minutes a day that I told you to do this, and you tell me I just haven't had any time, I'm going to say there's no help for you, brother. I'm going to cut you loose, and you're not going to listen. You're not going to do it. There's no sense. There are other things we're going to do the course, finish the academy, put those courses on it, but we're also going to start a paid mastermind where daily we're having the conversation in the group. What did I learn from doing a mastermind? The fact is that when you do a free mastermind, the people that I set the criteria that they had to contribute, they had to collaborate, they had to share, and guess what? In 6 months, I put 100 people in a group. Nobody has shared a damn thing. This is why an association won't work. This is why you can't get people together. This is why I rather only work with the 1%. I work with A players that are actually going to do and execute. So we're going to be doing a small mastermind. It is all paid. I am, when are you going to monetize the podcast? I just did. We will no longer give away the advice for free. We will still be doing a ton of things on the podcast that are beneficial to you, like this, telling you exactly where things are, what you have to do. But I'm not going to give you a play-by-play, and I'm not going to invest time in people anymore that just take up all of my time, say thank you, and never show up again, never did anything with it. We're only going to invest in people, but it's going to be affordable, because the reality is, while you're growing, there's a huge need. The problem is 99% of you aren't willing to pay for it. And I only care about the 1% that is willing to succeed. I don't care. I am always on that 1% mentality. That's the reality. This is the reality of this. So, I will have limited hours. No, I'm not going to talk to you. I got people calling me, I need to talk to you, but do you call me like at 7 o'clock tonight when I get home from my route and after I've done my thing? So what do you think? I don't have a family? I don't have responsibilities? I don't have downtime? I'm not going to give you an hour of my time on your wish to do it. No, you're going to take time during the day, just like when you have to go to the doctor and you have to go to the dentist and you have to go to the therapist. You will take time off during your day. We will meet for an hour. If you don't show up and you don't show up on time, I make $100. It's that simple. It's a lot of tough love because you're this idea that I'm just so busy I can't take time off to do anything, even for myself. This is why the situation you're in. So this is what we're doing. This is where we're going. I'm making more money now, doing more business, doing more, and we continue to do more than I ever have. So I'm not burned out. I'm not quitting on this industry. I'm not stopping the podcast. I'm not done. As a matter of fact, I'm setting my platform for the next 15 years. Because when I no longer want to own the business, I want to sell it. And I want to be able to do my conferences. I'm going to start doing the traveling that I want to do. I've been doing a lot of traveling. I've been investing in myself. I'm investing in my home, making it pretty, making this outdoor environment for me enjoyable, for my girlfriend, making plans for a wedding. Yeah, I know. You're crazy, bro. You do it again. I said, you don't understand, bro. You learn. You live, you learn. You do things differently. You don't retreat and go back and say, I'm never loving again. All men are horrible. All men are terrible. I'm going to stay alone the rest of my life. No, you heal. You repair things. You make things right. You move on. I am, perfect love cast out fear. I love the idea more than I fear the loss. Things are great. We've been together for a year. I'm doing a lot of traveling. I'm investing in myself. I'm being totally, if you want to be, I'm being self-centered a little bit and greedy with my time. And I'm investing in myself to enjoy my time. Like I can come on here in the afternoon and have a cigar and have a coffee. And I'm not stressed. I'm not worried about it. I've learned to manage my stress. I've seen a couple of therapists that have helped me with learning to manage stress, I was angry for a while, learning to let go of that anger in my life. And it was mostly angry at myself for allowing a lot of things. I'm angry at myself for allowing things with my employee, for allowing things at home, for allowing things that I should have never allowed, that I should have never put up with, never tolerated. And I was mostly angry with myself. And I had to heal from it. And a lot of you call me, hey, bro, I just had a guy just call me and says, bro, I'm getting a divorce. Just told me just like that. Running a $12 million business, he calls me and says, getting a divorce, not my choice. I said, bro, I'm sorry to hear that. If you need to talk, I'm here. A lot of guys who I had to counsel. I said, bro, get a lawyer. She's going to do this. She's going to do that. No, we agreed. And then a month later, bro, you were right. I needed to get the lawyer. Her lawyer, she lawyered up and they came after me. I do a ton of consulting work that nobody knows about that I keep quiet. Counseling is mostly what I do. I consider it more counseling. To me, it's my ministry, it's my calling in life. It's what I enjoy. It's what I love doing. It is draining, it is exhausting, but it is the most rewarding work that I ever do. SEO is competitive sport for me, but it's not rewarding. Business is fun, but it's not rewarding. The relationships and the people I help, that's what gives me the energy, the courage, the things that I need, learning to help other people get through things that I've gone through. That's all I do. I am not a guru. Don't call me a guru or don't call me for advice that I don't have an enormous amount of wisdom. I have street smarts. I have experience through a lot of pain that I've gone through. And what you're going to find is you can't build muscle unless you rip it. You can't build muscle and go to the gym unless you push past the exhaustion. But there are times when you need to also rest that muscle and allow it to repair so that you can go rip it again. That's what exercise is. That's what physical therapy is. That's what growth is. That's what it is. It's not the absence of the resistance, not the absence of the pain, not the absence of the problem, but learning how to deal with it, learning how to, yes, a surgeon will have to cut you, ma'am, because he found a tumor in your breast. He will have to remove your breast, but he will save your body. After that, there's going to come a lot of physical therapy and a lot of psychological therapy and a lot of emotional and self-esteem therapy. And what I find in counseling and in consulting is that it's exactly the same. There's a lot of hurt from the company that hurt you, that took advantage of you. There's a lot of hurt because you had to start up in something and nobody believed in you. Sometimes your wife doesn't believe in you. Sometimes your own family doesn't believe in you. Your people tell you you're crazy. Just go get another job. There's a lot of hurt, and you've got a lot of, you know what I find with a lot of these business owners and a lot of these people who are driven is a lot of it has to do in my talking to them with really self-esteem. Even the successful ones, where they had something to prove to their father. There's a lot of healing that had to be done there because their fathers told them they would never be anything. Their fathers were never there. I know because I never had a father. I had to learn to become a man on my own. Everything I've learned on my own. I learned how to do pest control business on my own. I learned computing on my own. I learned SEO on my own. But I'm willing to do the work and do the research where most people aren't. That's what I'm wired for. But I learned that it's an insecurity problem. In other words, if I stop doing this, my identity is wrapped up in it. If I stop doing it, who am I? If I don't do it, it will never be enough because I stop, I'm afraid of losing. Remember, everything has to do with fear or love. Then I find other entrepreneurs that just absolutely love what they do. And it's all about love. And they're not living with the stress and the fear and the paranoia. They enjoy it. Their trust is in the Lord. I know guys like that who are multimillionaires who trust is in the Lord. They're humble. And then other people who are paranoid about everything. A lot of it has to do with mindset, negative self-image, self-doubt, and you need someone to help you in that area. And I've done a lot of that. I've had to do it to myself. I had to do it with other people. I've had to do it in ministry. I had to do it with my own kids. And it's rewarding. When you realize and you know what you're called. You know, Stephen Van Tassel asked me this the other day in a private conversation. He says, have you sat down and talked to Jesus about what he really wants you to do? It's a lot of stress in your life, a lot of things that happen that he's still not even privy to of all of it. He just has a small amount. But he asked me that. You know, Sky confronted me about that. Eric has been telling me for decades. Everybody I know, you know, when I was a Bible teacher, people would come up to me and say, you know, why haven't you started a church? Why haven't you become a pastor? And my answer was, I've never been called to be a pastor. I've been called to be a teacher. Just because I can teach doesn't mean I can pastor. I've done pastoring, and I can do pastoring work for a lot of people. And I do most of the work I do is pastoring work, trying to help people through their emotional issues, their stuff at home. A lot of, believe it or not, a lot of the stuff in the business affects you at home. How you deal with your spouse. How are you dealing with your kids? For the longest while, my daughter would say, Dang, Daddy, you're angry about everything. She's like my barometer, my measure, because she's just like me. And she irritates me more than anybody in the world. And I had to learn how to do that. I had to learn, how do I minister at home first? Always focused on how do I minister at home first. There's so much, guys, that I want to share with you. And I'm being transparent and open and vulnerable, because I really don't care about the criticism. I really don't. I have a thick enough skin that I don't care, but it matters to the people that it matters to. That's it. It's that 1% of people that this message matters to. All of these lessons, people who call me who are multimillionaires, they are. And they need to hear a word of comfort. They need to hear it. A lot of the time, they need a word of encouragement. They need a spiritual uplifting in their life because they're down. Even in all the success, they find themselves down. I find this all the time. So a lot of kids who are growing up without fathers, who today are starting their businesses, and they're doing it just to prove their father wrong, because they're so angry at their father because their father was not around ever, and when he was around, he was an a-hole. A lot of healing that has to be done. Girls that grew up without fathers and have no idea what a man looks like, and they're trying to validate themselves in so many things. These are the real issues. My work and my podcast and my life and doing a lot of soul searching and evaluation on where I want. I was talking to my therapist. I did get a therapist. He's really good. He's okay because he has a private consultancy also where he deals with a lot of entrepreneurs. And I talk to him but it's mostly about me getting a sounding board and figuring it out. He's not giving me too much advice. He says, you're on the right track. I'm not depressed, so he's not worried. I'm not suicidal. I could be homicidal sometimes. So these are the things, guys. These are the things that I think you've seen a shift in what I'm doing. Leading everything, all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. I know what my calling is. I know what my purpose is. I don't know everything. I don't know all of it. Now I see dimly. One day I'm going to see him face to face, and I'm going to know him as he knows me. Now I don't. I think that is what's important in the journey of doing what I'm doing, going where I'm going. The next stage in my life, reinventing myself. At least once a decade, I reinvent myself a little bit. And what I'm going to do when I don't want to deal with all this anymore and sell my business and, do what I do full time. I said one time, I'm going to leave you with this, that one day, I'm going to teach at Purdue University, where they have the first and oldest pest control training program. One day, this guy without a PhD, without a doctorate, without an advanced degree, is going to teach them. One day, mark my words. Listen to this, what I'm telling you today. Mark it. I've had PhDs sit down with me, agronomers. I remember sitting around a meeting with the entire sales team from a manufacturing company that is a well-known manufacturing company that I love. And I was sitting at the table with most of their salespeople. And one of the guys says, where did you get your degree and where did you acquire all this knowledge? And I said, I read all the information. It's funny that Elon Musk says all the information is out there. You don't really need a degree to do much. You just need to learn how to do it. The thing is, I am a learner and I am an implementer. And somebody's having a fit next door. getting mad at the dog. Somebody that's there. And I asked, he asked me, where did you get your degree? I've had people say, where did you get your agronomy degree? I said, I read. And that's more flattering to me, the fact that I don't have a degree in anything other than computer science. That's about it. So yes, you can. Yes, you can do it. Yes, you can make it. You need to surround. The Bible says that by wise counsel you go to war. The wise man surrounds himself with a multitude of counselors, and a multitude of counselors, there is security. The thing is, you got to get yourself good counselors, not people tweeting stuff. Good counselors. I leave you. Until next time, have a pestacular day.